Off mute. On mute. Off mute.
Off mute.
There you go.
Hello.
He's off mute. Can you please welcome the guys that think not to the stage?
Thank you. All right. Hi everybody. How's everyone doing? Good? All right. So Tom and I will be doing a joint presentation here tonight, and we actually found a typo in our slides early on. What we meant to actually say was creating apps with JavaScript, but for a room full of JavaScript devs, it's one and the same, right? There's a total of 65 slides in this, so it's not too long between now and a beer break, and we'll keep you posted all the way through. For those of you who don't know us, I'm Boris, this is Tom. We're one of the core team at ThinkWell, and you can check out our profiles on the site. We have a thing for making hybrid apps. I skipped the bit where I say I'm not a JavaScript developer, I'm an interaction designer. Tom's the developer here, and we tend to work together a lot. But we have a big affinity for making hybrid apps, and every third Wednesday of the month, around 5 o'clock, we have this conversation with some people. And we go, we forget these things. So we decided that we needed a new plan of action. We brainstormed some ideas. Jed came up with something more appropriate, and I said, close enough. So we got working on 15th of April, which is actually, I think it's 2 days after the end of JSConf. So we started this on Hack Day, which is kind of cool. And we made an app for SydJS. So before we get into the actual bit of the talk, let's show it off. Over to Tom.
Shut up. So, here we have my iPhone. It's running real-time through AirPlay. You can see the SydJS app icon at the bottom left. When we go into it, it first loads up and it talks to the SydJS website to get the latest meetup data. Once it finishes, we're greeted with a transition, and it shows the upcoming meetups and how much time till the event, in which case it's now. Otherwise, if the meetup has ended, it has all the past meetup details until Shaki announces the next one. Then we have the buttons to view the talks of the meetup, a calendar button, and attending and not attending buttons. So I'll go into view talks. Here you can see our talk, the talk that's coming after ours, and the first lightning talk. It shows them in detail, and if they have links or URLs or anything like that, you'll see the buttons there. Coming back to the home view, we have the calendar icon on the other side of the View Talks button. Tapping this adds the next meetup to our calendar. And if I switch to the calendar app, you'll see the calendar event. You'll see the title, the time, the notes, and even sets a 1 hour reminder for you. If I go back, we'll see the attending and not attending buttons. So if I tap attending, we're ready with this view. We can sign in by GitHub, Facebook, Google, Twitter, and email. This is probably my favorite view of the entire app, together with the color scheme from dark to light, the individual icons, and of course the jelly effect when it comes into view. So I'm going to tap email. You can see you can sign in via email like normal. We can also sign up for a new account as well, or we can reset our password. But I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to do Twitter for something different. So now it's loading up the Twitter website to authorize our account. I'll type in my details. So it's a mobile-friendly signing page. I'll submit. It's going to redirect me back to the application. And now it comes up with a view to confirm my details, so it actually hasn't created the account yet, which is awesome. This mirrors the workflow of version 2 of the SydJS website that we launched last month. I'll just enter my email address. And press submit. That's going to create my account, and it's going to greet me with my Twitter avatar and my name. And it's going to mark me as attending because I pressed attending just before I signed in. I can cancel my attendance as well by going nope. I'll cancel it again and do attending. Notice that the ticket goes up and down depending on the state it is. Next are push notifications, which will be sent by Sharky when a new meetup is announced next month or any other important news. He does this by a secret page on the SydJS website that was set up. To enable notifications, we tap the alarm clock in the top right. And it says a confirm. Then the alarm clock jiggles when they're enabled. Hooray! In the top left, we've got the menu. So from here, we can look more about SydJS, just the general information, or we can look at the credits, who made it, how it was made. It's open source, and there's a license. We can also sign out, and it has the same view as the sign-in view, and we're signed out. And of course, attendance is reset as well. There's also another feature which is slightly hard to see, but there's a parallax effect on the background image on the Opera House. When you're on your phone and you download the app yourself, you'll be able to see a better effect. And that's the entire SydJS app from end to end. I'll go into detail how we achieve some of this shortly, but for now, I'll hand it back to Boris.
Cool. Back to Keynote. Alright, that was the demo. It'll be available in a day or so, depending on when the guys in the States decide to let it through. We're hoping it'll be done by now, but it hasn't been. The App Store review times have gone up heaps. And we'll publish it to Google Play at the same time. Alright, so the actual talk, what we're here to talk about, is two parts. I'm going to tell you briefly about how we prototype the UI interactions that you just saw. And I'm going to make a case that as a developer, you guys should demand of your designers that they do the same thing. Tom will then share his experience as a developer about building the app using Cordova, and how to make the app feel native without developing natively specifically. And then at the end there's some more swag we'll share with you guys. Okay, so speaking of design and prototypes, here's a process that any developer might be familiar with. There's an app. There's some features, there's some things we want to actually get built. In this case, this is the SydJS app, the sort of core stuff. Then the designer, somebody like me, goes away and does some lo-fi sketches and gets the UX concept worked out, and then jumps over into Photoshop and starts tinkering with the look and feel of the app. Then, when the most important things are put in place, namely the drop shadows and the gradients, we call it a day, and then I would have a conversation like this with Tom. Hey Tom, the logo should kind of like into place, and like that little green button should like sort of go and change color while the X sort of like into view. And no shit, this is a conversation I had with Tom at the start of this process. And I'm like, yeah, got it, cool. Yeah, just let me know when I can test it. Over to you. But honestly, that's a bit of a cop-out. And I would argue that skipping the interaction prototyping stage is both unacceptable and unnecessary. And it's unacceptable primarily because designing with motion is actually now a core part of the user experience, increasingly so, and Google's material design is really just the latest affirmation of that. We'll be seeing a lot more of it. And I think it's unnecessary to skip the interaction design phase because there's plenty of good tools out there that actually make prototyping really easy, depending on where on this scale you fit as a designer. So, quick recap of tools. You got Flinter, which is great. You drop some screenshots in and it kind of simulates the app transitions for you. You got Keynote, which gives you a little bit of control about like how to actually control things based on actions. You got Adobe's Edge Animate, which is kind of like a hybrid Flash JavaScript based tool. And then if you're more familiar with JavaScript, you've got things like Framer, which is just really good and efficient to work with. I'm not sure if anybody's actually had experience with it here. I fall somewhere about there on the spectrum on my JavaScript L plates. So I figured I would give Edge Animate a go. I'll give you just one really quick example of the workflow that's actually involved. And you saw the RSVP buttons before. If I was doing this flat, I'd be doing endless comps trying to actually explain to them with made up words how I want it to behave. So instead of doing that, let's have a quick look at an actual demo. Ooh, this is on a different screen now. One moment. Let me see if I can do this. Where are we? Alright. Yeah, that's better. Okay, this is Edge Animate. If you've seen Flash ever in the past, it's very similar to the same sort of thing. I've got a composition here, it's got a timeline, it plays, it does some stuff, no big deal. Here are the RSVP buttons. We have a look at those. So all they are is some text, some divs, a timeline where stuff happens over time. We make it move so that we achieve kind of this effect. Now, this is all just using CSS, JavaScript, so at the end of the day, you can publish it and kind of view it in your browser like a composition. It doesn't create nice code. You would never, ever use this in production. Even I know that. But it's really handy for sort of going, hey, how fast do I want things to move? How do I want it to rotate? How should it change color? And so on. So that's all well and good, but for me as a designer working with developers, one of the perks of Adobe's Creative Cloud and where Edge Animate fits in, for example, is this. So here we have, let's get rid of this for a second. We can take this, we can publish it. What this does is actually packages up all our stuff into a little folder with all the assets and the JavaScripts and the CSSs. And we compress it, and then we jump into our friend PhoneGap, and this is an app I set up earlier. We can go and update the code by uploading that zip file, and then, here's my phone, here it is. I won't do this because the actual upload takes a little while. But if you were doing this, you would go, hey, check it out. So on your phone, you go to your PhoneGap, install the package by doing that. Right, hit install, and it would then give you a SydJS composition, like so. And all this does is it gets the latest set of code from PhoneGap, packaged up. Voila, we have a prototype running kind of like an app. So now as a designer, I can actually play with this stuff in quite a simple way like we did in the browser. And I can actually show the guys that I'm working with to actually build this what the hell I'm talking about without using made up words and waving my hands all over the place, which is kind of neat. So this has changed obviously between when this was created and the final app was produced, but it's supposed to. This is really just a starting point. Okay, let's go back.
Just tell your CEO that he's not
running. Okay, that was the demo. So, what the hell's my point? My point is interaction and prototyping is actually really easy. And designers should go beyond the flat mockups and demonstrate the intended behaviors. And I think the developers actually have a right to expect this of designers now. So the next time, if you're actually working with a designer who gives you some flat comps, you say, hey, go and build me a prototype animated of how you want this stuff to work. Because you can. And if they can't, point them in one of the tools, or even better, teach your designer some JavaScript. I've had the benefit of this. I will almost guarantee that you'll enjoy working together more, because you can't spell UI without you and I. I'm sorry about that. On the upside, there's only 23 slides left to go. And at this point, I'll hand it over to Tom again.
Yeah. Okay, so this is part 2, which is the build and publish process. With Boris's stuff in hand, it changed the way I went about building the app. In the past, we prototyped in development. We build some stuff, put some effects on it, try it on a physical device, undo it, redo it, change it completely. On my end, this was frustrating as hell. This time we were able to tweak and enhance it rather than build each concept as Boris just covered. It's absolutely possible to make an awesome native app using JavaScript and web technologies. You can either go the Objective-C, Swift, or a Java route, or utilize Cordova. What is Cordova? It's a platform for building native mobile apps using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Cordova plugins, allowing you to use features like push notifications and tap into physical hardware. So no, we didn't build this natively. Why is that? It wasn't an option to build it for just only iOS or only Android, nor was there enough time to learn those two new programming languages in my case. I wanted to use my existing JavaScript skills and build on them. Did we use a pre-built framework? No, we built it from the ground up. We wanted complete control of the app's logic, styling, and functionality, right down to modifying the Cordova code. At its core, we have a custom framework that handles things like touch events, view transitions, loading, spinners, buttons, and so on. Together with a variety of JavaScript libraries, the main ones being Backbone, Moment, Velocity, jQuery, and Underscore. And best of all, you spend most of your time in the web browser. So that's the website, but you can only do so much. If you want to make an awesome app, you have to take advantage of native functionality. How do we do this? Plugins. All the plugins you see here are used in the SydJS app right now. When you add a meetup to your calendar, turn on push notifications, or make a confirm dialog appear, they are created by Cordova in the community for you to use. When you add a plugin, you write some JavaScript to use one like this, and it takes care of the rest. You don't need to write 2 separate pieces of code for iOS and Android. Plugins take care of it for you. The code you see here utilizes 2 plugins. It's watching for a shake event when you shake your phone. If it detects one, it vibrates your phone for 1 second and then shows a native dialog. So a native dialog, I mean in iOS and Android, the specific style, and it says stop shaking me and an OK button. You can also add a title. You can customize the title, the message, add a callback function, button label, and so on. It's really good. So we have all these parts, but how do we take it and build something awesome that feels as native as possible? Firstly, animation. Everyone expects animations to be shit in a web app, but they don't have to be. Using something like Velocity and putting in some effort makes a world of difference to the user. VelocityJS is a relatively new jQuery plugin that re-implements the Animate function you might be aware of to produce significantly better performance gains. It makes it even faster than CSS animation libraries. It also has full mobile hardware acceleration, critical when you're developing a mobile app. Aside from that, there's additional functionality like complex easing, chaining, looping, reversing, SVG animation, the list goes on. I thought SydJS was the perfect testing ground for Velocity, so I converted all the transitions to it. Originally, this view was just a static view with the buttons laid out as you see here. But as soon as I saw Boris's design, I thought how awesome it would be if they rose from the bottom to the top after one another. So I tapped into Velocity's spring physics ability that allows you to control tension and friction values. Let's take a quick look at the code. So when the starting view appears, we call this function. Looping over each button, we set their position to be at the bottom of the window, set their height so they're all equal to cater for the different screen sizes. Then we animate the buttons in. They need to be high enough as well to overlap each other. Finally, with everything in place to animate the top value with velocity, delaying each button one by one, 100 milliseconds apart for 1 second, with velocity spring physics handling the rest, so you get the jelly effect. If you have complex animations, velocity can do a lot for you, and this is just scratching the surface, so I highly recommend you check it out. Second, social signing. Social signing could have been a shitty experience. You could switch the user to an external browser and tell them to come back, or you could attempt to do some kind of iframe hack, or perhaps use a third-party service. Ideally, you would use a Cordova plugin that handled it all transparently. There's a couple out there, but they were all different when I looked into it. So I kept looking for a solution that I could use for all of them. Finding that I could customize the in-app browser from Cordova and extract data from it and set up my own workflow was the perfect solution. In the end, I'm really happy with it. It's clean, transparent, works exactly the same way across all 4 networks that you see there. When you select a network, a new window opens over the app itself, opening the sign-in form for the network you selected. But how do we get the data from there back into the app? We hook into the browser's load event, which occurs every time a page is loaded within the in-app browser itself. So when authentication is successful, it redirects you back to a blank page I created just for the app on the SydJS website, parsing the social data and storing it in local storage. And then from the app, we execute a script retrieving this data. Once it's found, we cache it, check if we already had a user, or sign them in directly, or we redirect them to the form that you saw when I signed in via Twitter earlier. Third, push notifications. I didn't think they were possible because it wasn't a native app, but they totally are. In fact, it was one of the first features I embarked on. Notificare is one company that offers a Cordova plugin which handles the entire notification process, again, just providing some JavaScript functions for us to use. However, there were a lot of nuances. Certificates, passwords, configs, the fact that there were 2 platforms didn't make it any easier. It was often a case of I made a change, compiled the apps, ran them, enabled notifications, tried to send messages. There were a lot of moving parts. In the end, I was successful, but spent about 10 hours on it. The two screenshots on the right are the very first notifications I received on both iOS and Android. Saving advantage. I don't know how to build an app from scratch in either Objective-C, Swift or Java, but utilizing my skills in HTML, CSS and JavaScript, I can use those instead. Even better, I can use a web browser and dev tools to assist with like 90% of the development, just like I'm used to, tweaking styles, animations and so on the fly in Firebug. It's fantastic. Despite the challenges, it was a hell of a lot of fun building this app. The dev time alone for me to build the app itself took 200 hours, and 150 hours is the rest of it. And I did most of this in my spare time after work. There's something about building a small, self-contained app and putting a lot of quality into it, pushing the boundaries of Cordova, and then packaging it up and putting it in the store and running it on your phone. It's so fucking cool. Seriously. This is the 3rd production quality app we've built. And I enjoy the framework and the process so much that I'm going to start on a 4th app based on an idea I had for a couple of years. I'm hoping to talk about it later this year. It's going to be really awesome. 5 slides left. Lastly, Boris said at the start that we wanted to share this stuff so you can make one too. Well, we've packaged it up and open sourced every single thing that you have seen tonight. It's at this new website here that we just launched today. If you go there right now, you can get all the source files. And if you've been thinking about trying hybrid app development, this might be a really good starting point. Thank you.